Today we're going to dig into one of the most important inventions in human history. It's a simple tool that didn't just turn the Earth, it literally built the world we live in.
To really get it, you have to picture the world before the plow. Try to imagine a world where every single person is a hunter-gatherer. Think about what that means. No permanent homes, so no cities. No extra time or resources, so no writing, no complex technology. None of the things we just assume are part of life.
Life was just this constant, endless cycle of movement. You followed the herds, you followed the seasons, all in a desperate daily search for food. For thousands upon thousands of years, that was the entire human story. And yet, we did escape that fate. The key that unlocked our entire future wasn't some grand philosophy or some powerful new weapon. Nope, it was a simple but absolutely revolutionary piece of tech. The plow. Okay, so to really appreciate why the plow was such a game changer, we first have to understand the problem it was solving. And that problem was a very hard, very real limit: the power of human muscle. On one side, you had the hunter-gatherer life, always moving, living in small groups, always on the edge of survival. And on the other, you had the very first stabs at farming. People were settled, which was new, but they were using things like digging sticks and hand hoes. It was just backbreaking, incredibly slow work. You could only farm tiny little plots of land. It was a start, but it wasn't enough to build a new world. Basically, humanity had hit a wall. To grow, to build, to create anything complex, we needed something that could multiply our own strength, a tool that could do the work of many people, but way more efficiently. And that brings us to the first great food revolution, a spark of innovation in ancient Mesopotamia that was about to change absolutely everything.
So, meet the art, also known as the scratch plow. About 6,000 years ago, the Sumerians came up with this. It's basically a simple wooden frame pulled by oxen. Now, it didn't have a mold board, that curvy part that flips the soil over. It scratched a shallow groove into the earth to get it ready for seeds. It was basic, for sure, but it was a breakthrough.
But this tool had its limits. A big one, actually. It worked okay on the light, dry soil you find in Mesopotamia, but it was pretty much useless in the heavy, wet clay soils found in a lot of other places. It was a crucial first step, but the real revolution was still to come.
But here's the thing. Even with all its flaws, this simple little plow unlocked the single most important ingredient for building a civilization. This was the first major ripple effect from this new technology.
And that ingredient was surplus. For the first time in human history, one farmer could grow more food than their own family needed to survive. Now that sounds so simple to us, but it is the absolute foundation for everything that comes next.
And this is where you just see the dominoes start to fall. Food surplus means your population can get bigger, you can stay in one place, creating permanent villages. And hey, if not everyone has to be a farmer, you get specialization. You get artisans, priests, soldiers. Well, to manage all these people, you suddenly need governments and writing. That leads to trade networks, which grow into cities and eventually empires. So you see, the plow was never just about growing food. It was the engine that literally powered the construction of society itself. But the plow's impact went even deeper than that. Its invention sent out these second and third ripples that would reshape the very fabric of human society in ways no one could have possibly predicted. Okay, so now enter the next big upgrade, the heavy plow, or the Karuka. This thing was a technological marvel for its time. It had an iron coulter, which is like a heavy knife, to slice vertically into the tough ground. Then a plowshare to cut horizontally under the roots. And this is the key part: a mold board to lift and completely turn that heavy soil over. This buried the weeds and brought all the good stuff to the surface. But all that power came at a serious cost. This machine was so heavy, so difficult to pull through the earth, that it required a team of 8 oxen. Just let that sink in for a second. 8 of them. Which, leads to a pretty obvious question, right? In a world where most people are subsistence farmers, how on earth could a single family afford the iron for the plow, the skilled labor to make it, and a team of 8 oxen?
The simple answer is they couldn't. Not a chance. The heavy plow was way too expensive for one household to own and operate alone, and that economic reality forced a massive social change. Peasants had to start pooling their resources, their animals, their labor, and work fields together as a community. This created a whole new kind of social bond, a village-level cooperation that actually started to give them collective power against the old feudal system.
And there was another, even deeper social consequence. The enormous physical strength needed to control a heavy plow being pulled by 8 massive animals meant that over time, the work became dominated by men. As this happened, the vital roles women had always played in agriculture started to shift, and their labor was increasingly pushed into the domestic sphere. This created gender roles that have echoed through society for centuries.
So, this brings us all the way to the plow's final ripple. Its long, complicated legacy that stretches from the medieval world right into our own.
Because the innovation, of course, did not stop. After the heavy iron Karuka, things just sped up. The 18th century gave us the first all-metal plows, then came the huge steam-powered plows in the 19th century, and finally, the powerful tractor-mounted plows that define modern industrial agriculture today.
But this ever-increasing power to turn the earth had a dark side. Millennia of constantly turning over the soil left it exposed and vulnerable. This practice led to widespread soil erosion and eventually to massive ecological disasters, like the American Dust Bowl in the 1930s, where the precious topsoil literally just blew away.
So when you step back and look at the whole 6,000-year story, it's just incredible. The plow gave us civilization, it gave us our cities, our writing, our empires, but it also carved these deep grooves into our societies, invisible rules about community, about gender, and about our relationship with the planet itself. That legacy is still with us, still turning the soil of our modern lives. And it leaves us with a pretty big question. What will we choose to plant next?